Hey everyone, Vance here. If you're someone who truly values truth, freedom, and the fundamental principle that power must answer to the people, not the other way around, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon right now. We're in the process of building a vibrant, engaged community that isn't afraid to ask the tough, probing questions, especially when the headlines become blurry, biased, or outright misleading in today's fast-paced media landscape. Let's dive right in with a simple yet profound truth. America's justice system can only function effectively when it operates blind to politics, personal vendettas, or favoritism. When the scales of justice begin to tip, when the law is twisted into a weapon designed to crush one side, while conveniently sparing the other, we cease to be a true republic. Instead, we find ourselves sliding perilously toward a system of rule by law, rather than the rule of law that our founders envisioned. And make no mistake, this dangerous slide is accelerating at a pace that's catching far too many people off guard, eroding the very foundations of our democratic institutions. Right now, as we speak, the Department of Justice is being systematically weaponized. It's no longer serving as an impartial guardian of fairness and equity. It's morphing into a partisan machine that arbitrarily picks winners and losers based solely on political affiliations and allegiances. Even some well-meaning individuals, yes, including Democrats and others who genuinely should recognize the long-term peril, are unwittingly falling into this insidious trap, perhaps out of short-sighted loyalty or a misguided belief that the ends justify the means. I want to be crystal clear. I'm not here to defend or express any personal affection for figures like John Bolton, James Comey, or any other establishment insider who's been caught in the crosshairs. This discussion isn't about liking or disliking specific personalities. It's about recognizing and respecting a critical line that no free democratic nation can afford to cross. When a sitting president starts handpicking who gets prosecuted and who conveniently walks free, the entire system stops serving the cause of justice. Instead, it begins to serve raw, unchecked power, setting a precedent that undermines the equality we all hold dear. This issue transcends any single case or individual. It's fundamentally about the power of precedent and the long-term implications for our society. Once we allow a president to transform the DOJ into what essentially functions as their personal law firm, the floodgates are flung wide open. This abuse will inevitably be repeated, time and time again, until absolutely no one is safe from its reach. Whether you lean left, right, or sit squarely in the center, nobody is immune when the rule of law devolves into a tool for political retribution. You'll hear some voices reassuringly claim, "Don't worry about it. The career prosecutors embedded in the system will ensure everything stays fair and balanced." But let's be honest, that's nothing more than wishful thinking, rooted in a nostalgic view of how things used to be. The essential guardrails we once trusted implicitly a decade or two ago have been dismantled, piece by piece. The venerable institutions that historically resisted overt political pressure have been hollowed out from within, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation. When that erosion occurs, every single politically charged prosecution demands rigorous scrutiny, not unquestioning blind faith from the public. So, how do we push back against this troubling trend? It starts with empowering ourselves to fight back by asking the right, incisive questions, the ones that cut through the noise. Who exactly greenlit this particular indictment? And what was their motivation? Who stands to gain the most from dragging an individual through the grueling court process, potentially ruining their reputation and finances? Why is it that some people seem to skate free unscathed, while others face total devastation for engaging in identical or similar actions? These aren't cynical or conspiratorial questions, they're deeply patriotic. In a healthy, thriving democracy, those in power should fear the light of scrutiny. In a broken or faltering one, they demand unwavering loyalty and silence from the masses. Before we get bogged down in the minutiae of legal details and technicalities, let's first address the underlying motive. If the primary goal is revenge, if the approach is to pick the target first, then scour for a crime to pin on them, then all the elaborate paperwork and procedural formalities in the world amount to nothing more than a clever disguise for authoritarian tactics. The old Soviet saying captures this chilling reality perfectly. Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime. That's precisely what unfolds when the legal process itself becomes the instrument of punishment, dragging on endlessly to inflict maximum damage. Let's face it, nobody leads a completely spotless life. With sufficient investigators, unlimited resources, and a determined agenda, it's alarmingly easy to unearth something, anything, on just about anyone. It could be a minor tax slip-up from years ago, a misread or out-of-context email exchange, or even a donation that's been deliberately misinterpreted. That's not the pursuit of genuine justice. That's a calculated exercise in control, designed to intimidate and silence dissent. We find ourselves at a precarious tipping point in our nation's history. On one side, the rule of law, where every citizen stands equal before the bar of justice. On the other, rule by law, where the legal system becomes merely a tool wielded by the powerful to maintain dominance. To illustrate this stark contrast, think of it like enforcing a speed limit on the highway. Under the rule of law, the limit is 55 miles per hour for everyone, applied uniformly without favoritism. Under rule by law, the cops selectively pull over only the opposition for going a mere 56 miles per hour, while letting allies zoom by at higher speeds. It might technically be legal on paper, but it's rotten and corrupt to its very core, breeding cynicism and division. There are two key principles that lay bare this systemic rot: selective prosecution, where certain individuals are harshly punished while others committing the same offenses walk away unscathed, and vindictive prosecution, where targets are chosen precisely because they dared to speak out, protest, or challenge the status quo. When these two forces combine and operate in tandem, democracies don't just weaken, they fracture irreparably, leading to widespread disillusionment and instability. Of course, some will counter by saying, just take the time to read the charges carefully. Maybe they're legitimate and well-founded. I understand that impulse, but it fundamentally misses the broader point. This isn't merely about dissecting one isolated case, it's about recognizing the emerging pattern of abuse. When prosecutors have repeatedly demonstrated a willingness to twist the system for overt political gain, we simply can't afford to keep extending them the benefit of the doubt indefinitely. For many years, our courts have relied heavily on something called the presumption of regularity, the foundational idea that government lawyers and officials inherently play fair and act in good faith. That assumption held water back when our institutions maintained a high level of credibility and independence. But in today's environment, when those very same offices routinely lie to the public, strategically leak information to the press, and contort justice to appease the powerful, that presumption is effectively dead and buried. They've forfeited any right to automatic trust through their own actions. It's worth remembering that our nation's founders harbored a deep-seated distrust of concentrated government power. The Bill of Rights wasn't crafted as a glowing love letter to bureaucracy. It was designed as a strong leash to restrain it. Phrases like, "Congress shall make no law," and "the right of the people shall not be infringed," aren't gentle suggestions. They're stern warnings etched into our constitutional framework. So, why is it that judges in the modern era so reflexively defer to and trust prosecutors simply because they carry an official badge and title? That's not fidelity to originalism. It's a form of dangerous naivety that invites abuse. Whenever prosecutors stand up in court and declare, "This indictment is entirely legitimate," our collective response as citizens should be affirm, "Prove it," beyond any shadow of doubt. History provides countless grim lessons on what transpires when we fail to demand such proof. Consider Stalin's brutal purges in Soviet Russia, the sham political trials in modern-day China, or Putin's targeted crackdowns on dissenters, all of which cynically weaponized evidence to justify naked power grabs. These regimes didn't always fabricate charges out of thin air. Often, they simply chose to prosecute their enemies for behaviors that everyone else was engaging in without consequence. That's the essence of rule by law, selective, weaponized justice employed to consolidate and perpetuate control. Does any of this sound eerily familiar? It absolutely should, because we're witnessing similar dynamics play out here at home. When political allies are allowed to walk free while their rivals are systematically ruined for committing the exact same acts, that's the ominous beginning. When brave whistleblowers face aggressive charges but loyal insiders receive preemptive pardons, that's the problem deepening its roots. And when ordinary people start to shrug their shoulders and mutter, "Well, maybe they did something wrong after all," that's the moment when the rot truly sets in, eroding public faith from the inside out. So, what concrete steps can we take to reverse this tide? First and foremost, we must stop granting trust to those in power by default. It's not an entitlement. It's something that must be earned through consistent transparency, accountability, and self-restraint. Second, we can't afford to grade justice on a sliding curve, making excuses like, "It's kinda political, but probably okay in the end." No, a prosecution that's even slightly tainted by politics isn't redeemable. It's inherently corrupt and must be rejected outright. Third, let's redirect our sympathy where it belongs, not toward the prosecutors wielding immense power, but toward the accused individuals who are presumed innocent. Innocent until proven guilty isn't just a catchy slogan to trot out in civics class. It's the bedrock principle of any free and civilized society. I've had heartfelt conversations with career lawyers who confide in me, saying things like, "JD, I can't just up and quit. I've got mounting bills, a mortgage to pay, and kids depending on me." And I completely empathize with that human reality. But that's precisely why placing blind trust in the system is so perilous. When individuals start prioritizing their personal paychecks and job security over timeless principles of justice and integrity, the entire apparatus quietly bends and conforms to the whims of power. Republics don't typically perish at the hands of mustache-twirling, cartoonish villains. More often, they wither away because good, decent people choose to stay silent for far too long, allowing incremental compromises to accumulate. Here's what's truly at stake if we don't act. When everyday people lose faith in the fairness and impartiality of our justice system, the ripple effects are catastrophic. Courts lose their authority, markets become unstable, and elections descend into farce. You simply cannot construct lasting legitimacy on a foundation riddled with double standards. You cannot hope to restore public trust while perpetuating selective punishment that favors the connected over the common citizen. Therefore, the path forward begins with cultivating a mindset of healthy skepticism. The next time you hear about a fresh indictment making headlines, resist the urge to immediately dive into the dense legal fine print. Instead, pause and ask yourself the critical contextual questions. Why is this happening right now, at this particular moment? Who stands to benefit the most from it? Who might it conveniently silence or intimidate? That's the discerning lens through which every free citizen should view such developments, fostering a more informed and vigilant populace. At its core, this struggle isn't about partisan divides like left versus right. It's a timeless battle between freedom and fear, between accountability and authoritarianism. The very tools of prosecution being deployed against one political side today can, and almost certainly will, be redirected against the other side tomorrow if left unchecked. Tyranny doesn't announce itself with a dramatic leap. It insinuates itself gradually, through 1,000 seemingly minor concessions and normalizations. And to those in the media who still aspire to balance in their reporting, it's time to stop mechanically splitting the difference between objective truth and outright corruption. True balance means having the moral courage to call out abuses of power when they occur, regardless of who's in charge. When politically motivated prosecutions are rolled out with the fanfare of press releases, don't settle for being mere stenographers jotting down the official line. Step up and be real journalists, probe deeper, ask why these actions are being taken, and expose the underlying motives. For the record, I haven't given up on the Department of Justice or the broader legal framework, not by a long shot. But I am resolutely done with pretending that it's somehow magically immune to the corrosive influences of politics. To fix this, we'll need bold reforms, new rules to insulate it from interference, fresh leadership committed to impartiality, and a reinvigorated justice system that possesses the moral spine to actively protect dissent rather than punish it. That approach isn't rooted in cynicism, it's patriotism put into practical, actionable terms. Throughout our nation's storied history, we've repeatedly pulled ourselves back from the brink, emerging stronger after devastating wars, major scandals, and administrations that overreached their bounds. We have the capacity to do it again, but only if we collectively refuse to normalize this ongoing erosion of norms and principles. Remember, the law was always intended to shield ordinary citizens from the overreaches of the state, not to act as an extension of the president's personal ego or agenda. Our courts must remain truly blind to bias, not function as partisan referees picking sides. That's the unshakable foundation upon which our republic stands. Without it, the Constitution becomes nothing more than faded ink on aging paper, devoid of real-world power. But here's the empowering truth. We're not powerless spectators in this drama. We possess voices that can amplify truth, votes that can demand change, and digital platforms that can mobilize millions. Use them wisely and relentlessly. Call out instances where vengeance is cynically dressed up as justice. Question every claim that seems suspiciously convenient or timed for maximum political impact. Insist on full transparency before granting your consent or support to any official narrative. And a special word to the honest lawyers, dedicated agents, and principled public servants still operating within the system. Your individual courage matters more than ever in these trying times. History doesn't tend to honor those who chose comfort and complacency. It immortalizes the brave souls who defied corrupt orders, even when doing so came at tremendous personal cost, losing jobs, facing backlash, or enduring isolation. If this message strikes a chord with you, if it resonates on a deep level, then drop a comment below sharing your thoughts and experiences. Hit that like button to help spread the word far and wide. And don't forget to subscribe so you can join us in this ongoing fight, because we're not just debating partisan politics here. We're actively defending the rule of law itself, which underpins everything we hold dear as Americans. I'm J.D. Vance. Stay skeptical, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next one.